Jahmyr Gibbs has hit his over for longest rush prop in 8 straight games. Does he do it again? We'll be breaking down the Lions and the Vikings, Ravens, 49ers, Cowboys, and Dolphins, and all the NFL games, including Monday's games. We're gonna go through every single game. So any time to waste. I have to give a shout out to a couple people in the comments section for they put their plays before the game started, guys. You don't put your plays in 2 days ago. The game's been over for 3 days. Don't think I didn't notice that. Jeffrey Wilson on Monday said, take Kenneth Gainwell over 14.5 rushing. I think he went over in the first series. What a call. And then Chi-Town Feet said, take Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. He had 2. So nice calls in the comment section, guys. If you're enjoying the gambling content, hit the like button, leave us a comment, tell us your best bet for this holiday weekend. I'm Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com. Joining me, as always, my fellow prop master, Andrew McGinnis from WagerTalk.com. We're festive, we're profitable, and Andrew, there is no time to waste. Let's start with the Saturday games. You're going to start off with the Bengals and the Steelers. Interesting matchup here, the Jake Browning, Mason Rudolph showdown we've all been waiting for. So interesting game. I'm excited to hear what you found out and what you like props-wise in this game.
Well, 2 things, Andy. I really do like your sweater. And the second thing is I'm not excited about this matchup, actually. I'm not excited about there's definitely one quarterback I'm more interested in than the other. But I want to show some love to Jaylen Warren, actually. This Cincy team has a bottom 5 rush defense. And, Jaylen Warren, I think he's been the better back out of Najee Harris and him. But I think that he's had to split the load, split the carries quite a bit. But we've seen productivity just favor him in a huge, huge way. Harris a little bit banged up right now. So whether or not he ends up playing or not, I still think that Warren will have his carry numbers up. And, it's 42.5 for his rushing number. And unless this game gets out of hand, which Pittsburgh's defense can kind of help them stay in games sometimes, I feel like he can get the touches and get the numbers for the rushing attempts that will get him over this number. So looking at this Cincy team, their pass defense has actually been okay recently, but their rush defense continues to struggle. So I'll fade that and look at Warren over his rushing yards. Also, Andy, I can't go away from Joe Mixon receiving. It did miss last week, but just looking at the amount of targets he's getting, I know Jake Browning has been good as far as passing downfield and making big plays, driving the field, with a minute to go in the half and things like that. But the dump off to Mixon has been great. Mixon has improved his running game over the last few weeks, but I kind of have to keep looking at it because really he only needs 2 or 3 catches to get there. Last week, he fell short of 21.5 or 22, I guess it would be, by just a handful of yards, and it was not really a productive outing for him in the receiving game. He actually had a good rushing game. But this Pittsburgh team, the heavy pass rush that they have, right, in my opinion, when you face a team with a heavy pass rush, it opens things up for a lot of dump-offs to running backs. Running backs in the receiving game against really pass-heavy teams or heavy pass rush teams are always a good idea. And then a guy that I used to mention probably in like week 3 and 4 of Prop It Up, Pat Freiermuth, man. Like this guy, he's pretty much a blocker at this point, Andy. I mean, the guy has like 2 catches a game, if that. And when he does catch them, they're for like 3 yards. I want to look towards his unders. I thought that he'd be kind of a safety blanket with this carousel of quarterbacks for Pittsburgh, but it's just not working out for him. It's pretty much the main guys. Deontay Johnson's carrying the load, George Pickens. When these guys are healthy, they're getting all the targets. So some teams you look towards depth, and other teams it's quite the opposite. And I would say that it's pretty much the 2 key guys. You look for the overs, and the rest of the guys you're betting receptions unders. And with Pat Freiermuth, I definitely would say it would be yards unders, though, just because he can get a few catches, and even that he might not go over his yards number. But I'm looking forward to this game, and I actually can't believe I'm putting money on Warren over rushing. With all these great games, Andy, I can't believe I'm starting us off with that one.
Hey, sometimes these games that there's not a lot of attention on, those are the most profitable sometimes. So I love it. Love your sweater as well. Love wearing the spirit. I'll take a look at the Bills and the Chargers. I did a deep dive on Austin Eckler. I probably did too much of a deep dive. Probably just you can actually do too much research on a play. But here's what I came up with. Andrew, give me the under on his 71.5 rushing plus receiving. So let's look at the timeline of the Chargers. So Justin Herbert gets hurt. Chargers are eliminated from the playoffs. So the next week, Easton Stick starts, which I said on the show, take him over his passing, and he did, but they got mollywopped. Austin Eckler got 5 carries for 9 yards and 4 catches for 29 yards, like non-existent. Josh Kelly got 5 carries, and Isaiah Spiller got 16 carries. So the Chargers season's done. The coach and the GM get fired. They're on to the next season. Wouldn't it make sense to just see what you got in some of these younger guys and receivers and running backs? Like, why would you want to put Austin Eckler out on the field? Here's the other thing about Eckler. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. He's 29 years old. This is probably his last chance at a really good contract. There is no upside for him to go out on the field. Like, if he gets hurt, you can kiss that really big contract goodbye if he takes a big injury. So everyone knows what Austin Eckler can do. He could just get a few carries and catches here there to end the season and end the season healthy and go get his new contract. This is how much of a deep dive it is. I looked at his contract to see if he's playing for any incentives. He's not going to get to his touchdowns. He's only had 6 this year. He needs to get 4 more. I don't think that's going to happen. The only one he possibly could get is if he gets 246 yards from scrimmage the next few weeks, he does get a bonus. But his last really good week that he's had was week 1 in that big shootout against the Dolphins. And they're playing a motivated Buffalo Bills team, a team that's fighting to get in the playoffs. Last week, they held Tony Pollard to 57 scrimmage yards. The week before that, the best running back for the Chiefs was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who had 68 scrimmage yards. So these are teams that are competing for the playoffs. The Chargers are not. And last week, the Bills held the ball for over 35 minutes against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. What do you think they're going to do against Easton Stick and the Chargers? My guess is they're going to hold the ball for quite a while. I don't see any motivation for Austin Eckler to go out there and put up big stats. I don't see any motivation for the Chargers to put him out there. And I see motivation for the Bills to really lay the wood in this game. So I don't see it. I think you're going to see a lot of other names besides Austin Eckler. So that was my deep dive on this game, and it's my favorite play. I know everyone's going to be all over James Cook, and for good reason. His rushing and receiving, he's been crushing it. The only reason I don't like it this week is because the line, they jumped it from 76 to like 96, and I don't like when lines jump that much. I feel like when the books make this huge jump, it feels like there could be a letdown. If the Bills get up early, you could be looking at Latavius Murray and Johnson running out the clock at the end. But Austin Eckler, under rushing and receiving, by far my favorite play in this game. So, guys, please hit the like button, leave us a comment, and tell us what your best bet is for the weekend. We're going to move on to Sunday games real quick. Andrew, before we do that, tell everyone what you have up and where we can find you at.
So I had one play that was used for my $2 Tuesday play, which is back to regular pricing, which is a 4% total in the NFL. I also have another side best bet going, so that's another 4% play. And I have a couple plays going as well over the weekend that I'm already actually eyeing in the NHL. Obviously, there's some breaks due to the holidays, but I have some angles that I use around the holidays, and obviously I like the matchups as well, but I'm super excited about some of these games. So as you always mention, Andy, you can use all the promo codes. Also, if you guys want to just get a 3-day pass, this is certainly a great time to do so.
Love it. You got the Colts and the Falcons. It looks like, I mean, here in Indy, they're talking like Jonathan Taylor is going to play in this game. It's still kind of a question mark. So what did you find out? What do you like in the Colts and the Falcons?
So I have 2 player props on 2 different Falcon running backs. I'm fading the yards on Bijan Robinson, and I'm going over the attempts with Tyler Algier. And I know Algier is someone that you were looking at quite a bit earlier in the season. Algier doubled the amount of carries that Bijan Robinson had last week. And just looking at productivity-wise, this is a Colts team that, you know, I've heard you, Andy, just crap all over your Colts about their passing defense. But guess what? They are second last in the entire league in rush attempts. And they're like they're bottom 5 in rushing yards allowed as well. So they're not just bad through the air. They're bad at a lot of things. And I think that the fact is you still are seeing overinflated numbers with Bijan Robinson, even though they simply just aren't utilizing him much in the rushing game. And the fact is, a lot of times the quote unquote number 2 guy has a way better number. And sure, I could take the rushing yards number as well, but I just like the fact that with the rushing attempts, all I'm pretty much doing is betting on the workload that Algier will get. And for me, if I can really look at the numbers here, the rushing attempts for Bijan Robinson is 13.5. For Algier, it's only 8.5. And the fact of the matter is, when he's having more attempts, getting more love from the coaching staff, and he is 5 numbers less, I feel like it's a really good opportunity to look towards that. A good piece here with everyone's talking about Gardner Minshew and how he's just like the GOAT of backups that just always seems to find his way onto the field. Like every season, no matter what team it is for, like he just makes an impact on a team. He doesn't throw touchdown passes. He doesn't. It's the over 1.5 or the under 1.5 is relatively pricey. But if you take a look at the games, like they just always punch it in with a running back. Or he's running it in himself. Even he's not someone that's throwing passing touchdowns. Something worth mentioning, I think it's like 80% to the under in his starts over the last 2 years. So I thought that was quite shocking, since this is a guy that usually is making these big plays, but whenever he does have a good drive, it ends up on the goal line and someone else just punches it in. But I'll tell you what, the Tyler Algier play is one that stuck out to me right away. The fact that they have not adjusted him, his attempt number is only 8.5. I'm going to go towards that for my best bet on this game.
Love it. Yeah, the injuries and we cut producer Dan must love it. We cut Shaq Leonard and his Eagles went and picked him up, and you got to see why we cut him on Monday as he was just getting torched, just getting absolutely rocked. But don't worry, he came out and he said he's ready for a bigger role. So fret not, Eagles fans. You're gonna get it. I'm gonna take a look at the Seahawks and the Titans here. Again, one play really jumped off the page for me, and this is Kenneth Walker over 63.5. The Titans are just decimated with injuries, and they're going to be without Jeffrey Simmons, their best run stopper. This is going to be a real problem for the Titans. Last week, Devin Singletary ran for 121 yards. The week before that, Mostert ran for 96 yards, and A-Chain ran for 47 yards on only 7 carries. And Walker rushed for 86 yards against Philly on 19 carries. That was a really good performance against a Philly rush defense that is very good. This is a big, big step down in rush defense for Kenneth Walker. I think this line is too low. And not only that, Will Levis is hurt. And I was reading that Ryan Tannehill is taking snaps. I thought the guy was out for the year. All of a sudden he's back taking snaps. I think this is an ugly, ugly game. Seahawks coming off of their biggest win of the year. I think this could be a demolition that Seattle lays to the Tennessee Titans. So I think they're going to run the ball a lot. Kenneth Walker should have a lot of success. So that's going to be my favorite play in that game. Lions at the Vikings. We talked a little bit about Jahmyr Gibbs. His longest rush prop. That really surprised me. 8 straight games. So what did you find out in this one, Andrew? Lions at the Vikings.
Man, I'll tell you, I've been frustrated with injuries. I've been frustrated just with how many quarterbacks have played this year. Just looking around and trying to keep a handle on everybody has not been fun. But, and there's a big but there actually is opportunities to make money on some of these guys coming in. I like Nick Mullins over 22.5 pass completions. The fact of the matter is they're just not running the ball very much. And this is a guy that has to throw the ball. I think the Lions are going to come in and I think this one's going to be quite the beatdown, actually. I like the Lions quite a bit here. And just kind of looking at the way that they've been throwing the ball, it's not like any of it's really been long passes whatsoever. It's been quite a bit of dink and dunk stuff, short passes, hitting running backs, and those numbers have gotten up big time. And once you go down in the game and you get into that third quarter and you're down, you're pretty much eliminating the running game. And if you look at a lot of these quarterbacks that have come in, unless you're playing on an abysmal team, their completions numbers are going up because they're simplifying the offense. So even when they have a good drive, the possession time and how long it takes them to get up the field takes so long that, 4 or 5 catches sometimes is only getting them halfway up the field versus, you watch a team like Miami, I saw McDaniels pretty much saying, this is going to be a one pass drive, guys. All we need is one pass. Not every team can do that. Some teams actually need to pass the ball multiple times to get up the field. So I'm just going to look towards his completions over 22.5 is my only play here.
Love it. Commanders, Commanders and Jets. Talk about a couple teams that can't do it on one pass there, Andrew. Especially the Jets. They sometimes they can't even do it over the course of a game, let alone one drive. So this one is really easy for me. There's only one play you need to look at, and that's Sam Howell under 216.5 passing. Listen, the Jets just injuries galore all season. It's just been a disaster season for the New York Jets. But what has remained good is their pass defense. The Jets have allowed 125 yards average per game the last 3. Listen, it has just been the one steady unit that the Jets have, and I'm going to ride him again. So Howell throws for 127 against Miami, comes out of the bye week. They get crushed. He goes 11 for 26 for 102 yards before Jacoby Brissett comes in. They come out and they say, no, Washington is still your Washington says, no, Howell's still going to be our starter. That's fine. Ron Rivera is probably a lame duck coach at this point. So I don't foresee this being that entertaining of a game. I probably won't watch a second of it, but I just don't see how Sam Howell gets over his passing in this game. Their offense is banged up. They should be able to run the ball because the Jets don't have a great rush defense. So I would think, but their rush defense is way better than their pass defense is where I'm going with that one. So Howell under his passing is the only one. I guess we're going to get Trevor Siemian as quarterback, but if it's a Trevor Siemian offense, we have no stats to look at. We don't know any trends on the Jets, so I'll stay pretty far away from the Jets. I'll just take Howell under. So I do have a promo code, guys. It is my birthday tomorrow, and what better way to celebrate than with a promo code? So just use the promo code birthday30. No, that's not my age. It's $30 off a 7-day pass. So instant discount on checkout, normally $99 down to $69. And what better time to jump in? We are on a 12-0 all sports run. We cashed our football play last night. That makes it a 31-10 run in the NFL. And I know you guys are probably sick of hearing me talk about darts, but we're 18-9 this week. Went 5-0 yesterday. These are available on the domestic books. All access clients have been cashing on these all week. So if your 7-day pass is up today or tomorrow, you can use the promo code birthday30. If you haven't gotten a 7-day pass to take advantage of these, do it today. Promo code birthday30, $30 off 7-day pass. Andy Lang at WagerTalk.com. Andrew, your Packers are at the Panthers. Packers pretty interesting to try and figure out what to do with these injuries. So what do you like in this Packers and Panthers game?
So yesterday I had a power outage at my house, and I was planning on talking about Chuba Hubbard over on his pick, and I never did. And I literally think that I want to look toward his rushing yards because pretty much everybody is exposing this Green Bay Packers rush defense week after week after week after week, and it's getting tiresome to watch as a fan. When I look at this Packers rush defense, 30th in the league, giving up around 140 yards on the ground per game. And, when you've got Tommy DeVito, putting up like 80 yards or himself or 70 yards, and then you've got Saquon Barkley going off, Rashad White going off, Patrick Mahomes had a bunch. And pretty much everybody who they play, whether it's quarterbacks or the top running back, is just running all over this Packers team. And this is the thing about this Panthers team. They have the second worst passing offense in the entire league. They will run the ball until they can't, until they have no choice but to pass it. In fact, I think if this team could run the ball every play, they probably would. But they wasted a draft pick on a young quarterback, so they probably should throw the ball. But I'm looking at his number here. Current number, you can get is 72.5. for Hubbard there, and I think that it's a really good one. He's coming off actually a really big outing, and I talk about carries and workload. He's getting the opportunities, even though this team is struggling, even though they've had some really poor outings. And I don't trust this Packers defense right now, Andy. I think that Bryce Young could throw on them as well. I probably wouldn't mind looking towards his longest completion just because the number is so low. Anytime it's under 20 and it's against this Packers team, I kind of want to start looking at it now because they seem to always give up that big play. And then I want to look at Kraft under 42.5 receiving yards. As a Packers fan, he's somebody that everybody's kind of fallen in love with. I always talk about the depth of this team every single week and how there's kind of been a new guy stepping up. And, Christian Watson's supposed to be the big player. Romeo Doubs has stepped up, but then Kraft making that kind of a couple different big plays each game. But the books have certainly adjusted. This is a guy that his number went from the 20s to the 40s in a matter of 3 weeks here, Andy. And I know they're playing the Panthers, but I got to look towards the under. I was talking to a few people yesterday that love betting on Green Bay props, and they said that they pretty much only bet unders, especially when it comes to receptions. Because when you look at this team, there's not a handful of players that are getting, over like 3 or 4 catches. It's a very spread out offense, but I got to look towards Hubbard. And I got to admit, every time I say his name now, I just feel like I'm saying it wrong. And I think I might have done it again because Matt got in my head a couple of years ago. It's Chuba or Chubba, whatever it might be. I'm taking the over on Hubbard.
Just stick with last names. In hockey,
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just go with first names. Some of those guys, I have no idea. It's like, that's Pierre. Or most of the time it's the Russian guys. They're like, Sergey, take Sergey over his shots on goal prop. I'm not even going to bother with the with the last name. I'm with
all
you.
I care about is if it wins. That's all I care about.
Exactly. Don't need to pronounce the name. Just need to know if he's going over or under the rushing total. With you 100%. Browns at Texans. Again, we got some injuries to deal with. CJ Stroud, I'm guessing, is unlikely to play. The great Joe Ranieri always says, Andrew, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So don't overthink it. Let's just take a look at Joe Flacco props. I haven't seen the line out yet, but Joe Flacco's pass attempts, we've been riding that one. He's been not only going over, but going over by like 10. I expect the books to move this one. It was 35.5 last week. I would guess it's 38.5, 39.5. Since he's become the starter, he's thrown the ball 44, 45, and 44 times in 3 games, though he's just running it. And one of the things that helps is the Cleveland running backs have not been great. They're a little banged up as well. It's not a great duo. So Flacco's been lighting it up. Njoku's looked great, had 10 catches last week. So the passing game of the Browns seems to be one of their strong points. And this is a Texans team that is better against the run than they are against the pass. So Will Levis only threw for 199 last week against them, but the week before, Zach Wilson threw for 301 yards. So it's a Texans team that you can throw on. And I'll just take I wanted to look at Njoku and I wanted to look at Amari Cooper. And then I think sometimes I was like, I just want the quarterback. If they're going to be able to pass, just take the quarterback. Don't get too cute and try and pick which guy he's going to go to if he uses multiple weapons. So I just kind of eliminated some of the skill players for the Browns. I'm just going to pick Flacco. And with Texans, not a lot of props out on that one. You got to wait on the quarterback news. But to me, they're kind of a stay away. So Joe Flacco over passing, best one in this one. Jaguars at the Buccaneers, couple Florida teams. Who do we like in this one, Andrew?
Man, Andy, I got to say, I didn't hear you talking about, don't overthink it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it with Joe Flacco this year. So great stuff riding that streak because that was not on my prop it up bingo card for this calendar season in the NFL. Andy, you know what? Speaking of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mike Evans touchdown. Okay, like I'm in a fantasy league and I share the team with somebody else. And I get reminded every single week because there was somebody else that I wanted to draft, and I'm not too embarrassed to even say who. And my buddy was like, "No, we have to take Mike Evans. We have to take Mike Evans." And I was like, "No, they're gonna suck this year." And every week, this guy gets a touchdown. And I know the number's gotten worse and worse and worse. But, shout out to all the people that love betting like plus 400 touchdown scores that never win. It's okay to take a plus 110 touchdown scorer, guys. When Christian McCaffrey was minus 200, he was still getting in the end zone. So at this plus 105 current number, 7 of his last 10 with a touchdown, I have to continue to look at that. He's someone that's worthy of looking at, and receptions as well for Mike Evans. When I think back to Mike Evans, he was someone that was stretching the field, good for one huge play each game, it seemed like. Now it's more so just like Mr. Reliable. He's kind of getting the Stephon Diggs treatment. I mean, when in doubt, look towards Evans, and that's kind of what's happening in the red zone, and teams can't stop it right now. And looking towards Travis Etienne, the receiving yards was always something we were looking towards with him. But I actually would look towards the combo bet on rushing plus receiving to the over. I've mentioned a bunch of times, usually I'm an under guy when it comes to that. But look at the game he's coming off of. He didn't perform very well against the Ravens. However, 10 carries, which is still great, shockingly enough for only 31 yards. But then he had 6 targets for 28 receiving. So he's kind of getting a mixed bag. He's getting a little bit of both. So I would look towards him, probably rushing plus receiving. But if you want to choose one, I still would look towards the receiving. And one more would be under receiving yards for Ingram. The number to me has just gotten too high. Like, sometimes we talk about like the books aren't adjusting on this prop. The books haven't made, any changes, and you feel the best when the books aren't doing that. Well, I talked about it with Kraft. I'll talk about it with him. He's now 50.5. So, when you see these guys going over when they're low 40s, late 30s, you bump that number up to 50.5. He's gone under this number in 7 of his last 10 games. So even though the Jags could have an exciting team and they can put up points at times, they're going up against the Buccaneers team putting up points as well. But I think that this is too big of a number. So I'll go under 50.5 for Ingram. But I have to say, this matchup's going to be better. You're talking about disappointing matchups sometimes that you thought would be better preseason compared to it is now. I think this one's actually better than I thought it was going to be preseason. Like, this actually, the Buccaneers are surprising me, man. And I got to tip my hat to Baker Mayfield. He was somebody that I chirped every week last year on Prop It Up. Hats off to him, man. He's playing all right.
Isn't it amazing the Browns would probably just happily, not probably, they would happily take Baker Mayfield now over everything they traded and gave away for Deshaun Watson. What a disaster. I have to say, Andrew, the Jaguars, boy, to me, they really blew it. Like, they had Trevor Lawrence hurt, and like I think a lot of us fans were like, why would you play him against Cleveland and Baltimore? Like, why would you play him hurt? You could lose both those games anyway. Just put in the backup, take a couple losses, and then run the table against Tampa, Carolina, and Tennessee, get you to 11 wins, and you're good. No, they play him, and they still lose both of them. Like, just silly. Like, it's absolutely silly. And I know they're smarter than us, and that's why we're the ones watching the games. And they're the ones. I don't know. I still say I would be one of the best cornermen in the UFC, and I still think that many NFL teams would benefit from my advice on strategy points, because I tend to be right.
You'd be better than, Andy? David Goggins. I think you'd be a better cornerman than David Goggins in the UFC. But yeah, I don't like when they rush back players. That's for sure.
No, it was silly. You got nothing out of it. All you did was put more wear and tear on him. Like, just sit him, take the 2 losses, get him 100%, so you can now just take care of business against Tampa, Carolina, and Tennessee. It should be 3-0, but now you got Lawrence that just put unnecessary wear and tear. So I don't know. I thought it was a silly decision. So let's take a look at the Cardinals and the Bears. I got 2 props I like in this one. Andrew, it was hilarious. I was listening to a fantasy football show, and they were like, can you believe that Travis Kelce was like a first-round pick, and now next year Trey McBride and Sam Laporta are going to be drafted ahead of him probably? And it is true. These guys are incredible. So I'm going back to Trey McBride over 59.5 receiving. I've been very impressed by the Bears' defense. Their rush defense has been pretty good, and so has their pass defense. So they've been playing really good. But last week, Njoku had 10 catches for 104 yards against them. And McBride, the last 3 weeks, 7 catches for 60 yards, 8 catches for 89 yards, and 10 catches for 102 yards. This guy's putting up Tyreek Hill numbers. The chemistry with Kyler Murray is there, the production is there, and I think we're getting a really, really good number at 59.5. So I'll go ahead and take that one. And the other one I like is Justin Fields over 17.5 completions. Feels like a little bit low number on this one. He's had 19, 19, and 27 the last 3 weeks. I guess you could say, well, he could throw a deep ball, to DJ Moore, but I don't know. Brock Purdy only had 16 last week against this Cardinals team, but he gets a lot of yards after the catch, and their offense, they throw the ball a lot more deep than the Bears do. So, for example, Brock Purdy averages 9.9 yards per pass thrown. Justin Fields is only 6.7. So I just don't see a lot of long passes for the Bears. I think it could be a lot more dump offs, a lot more short stuff. So I don't want to look at the yards for Justin Fields. I want to look at his completions over 17.5. Feels like that number should be 19.5. So I think we're getting a little discount. So for this game, Trey McBride over his receiving and Justin Fields over his completions. Cowboys at Dolphins. What a big, big fantasy game. There's really two of them. Ravens, 49ers, Cowboys, Dolphins. So 2 big prop games, 2 big fantasy football games. What do you like in this game, Andrew?
I'll start things off with, I sometimes I bring things up before a couple games prior to a game that I like, and I talk about possession and this Dolphins team. I loved seeing that mic'd up clip of McDaniels being like, this is a 1-play drive, fellas. All we need is 1 play. And, I'm going to use that and take it into my handicapping. Certain handicappers like quotes. Well, how about an on-field quote to use for your handicapping? Under 34.5 pass completions for Tua here in this one. Obviously going up against a great defense. I know the Cowboys have looked different in some games when they have played, winning teams, that's for sure. But so have the Dolphins. We've seen both these teams kind of flex their muscles against poor teams this year. We'll see how they can fare against each other. But in all seriousness, the run game has also been super strong for the Dolphins. And I feel like just because of the highlight plays that we're seeing, Tua to Tyreek or Tua to Waddle, nobody really gives respect to Mostert and the running back room here for the Dolphins. And I think that's going to be a really, really key part of the game for them this week. So it's not as much of a dig on the passing game, obviously, or Tua, but I think that number is just a little bit too high, 34.5. I'll go under on his pass completions. Also, we talk about Mike Evans and his streak. Mostert has a touchdown in 8 of his last 10 games he started. So that's worth mentioning, and it's still a pretty good number there. I believe it's like minus 120 or 130, something around that line. I'm going to look towards Jake Ferguson over 43.5 receiving. This is a Dolphins team about middle of the pack as far as the tight end position goes. Get up around 50 yards per game. Ferguson's gone over this number in 3 straight games. The fact of the matter is, when you're playing teams that put up a ton of points, when you're playing in a game you expect to be back and forth, you got to keep teams guessing. And he's getting a ton of targets, but you have to use your depth. You can't just go to your number 1 guy. You can't just go to your number 2 guy. You have to utilize the tight end position, I believe. And I think they will do that. So I'm going to look towards him over. And, touchdown scorers, I actually might look towards Tua to punch one in. And, because we talk about it with Jalen Hurts. Like, it's quite the opposite. Like with this team, obviously, like Hurts will punch it in for the Eagles and they won't use the running backs unless they're kind of a little bit farther away out. But I think that with Tua, like everybody's expecting Mostert, and they've been drawing up some plays for Tua to kind of just like throw the other team off, I guess. And I know he has his concussion histories and things like that, but that number is like decent plus money. And I know everyone's lining up to look towards Mostert as well, but when you're getting like, plus 150, plus 200 or higher on a guy to get a touchdown, and he's the quarterback, and people don't really understand how much he actually runs the ball. He actually takes off a decent amount for a guy that has that concussion history and the injuries he's gone through. But this is going to be an unbelievable game. You mentioned the fantasy games. This is probably the one I'm looking forward to the most. Obviously, you've got the Monday game, but this one should be great. But my best bet here is definitely Ferguson over on his yards.
Yeah, I could totally see like Tua snaking a couple touchdowns from guys, completely depending on like Mostert and A-Chain and some of those guys are like, oh man, I just need a touchdown from Mostert and I win this week. Tua sneaks it in. I
Yeah.
could absolutely see that. As somebody that owns Tony Pollard, I just love those end arounds to CeeDee Lamb for touchdowns. Those are the best when they don't give it to Pollard. But let's get CeeDee Lamb rushing touchdowns. He doesn't have enough receiving. We need to get him some more rushing touchdowns. Signed, bitter Tony Pollard, fantasy manager. Next game is just an absolutely brutal game for props and for viewing purposes. Patriots and the Broncos. I mean, I guess if we get a line on Ezekiel Elliott receiving and if it's around 20, maybe you go ahead and take that one. But there's a couple Broncos props that I think are worth mentioning. Javonte Williams under 55.5 rushing. He's gone under this in 4 out of 5 games. And this Patriots rush defense is, since their bye week, what is it? I think it's the best. I think you just say it is the best rush defense. That was 4 games ago. They had their bye week. No running back has had more than 46 yards against this Patriots team. And only one of them has had more than 37, and that was Saquon Barkley. So they have just been absolutely locking down this running game. And in passing game, let me read you some numbers here, Andrew. 23, 46, 45, 31, 33, 30, 23, 33, and 21. Those are the longest catches in the last 9 games for Courtland Sutton, and his longest reception this week is only 20.5. He has been obliterating this, and it's terrifying to bet this because I've been sprinkling this, and one of them he didn't get till like late in the fourth quarter. And so you're watching the entire game, and there's not even like one deep shot, and you're like, well, this is the week. And all of a sudden it just takes one really long pass, and it's always to Courtland Sutton. So it's kind of one of those, just keep riding the streak. Russell Wilson is just connecting. They put single coverage on him one time, and they're going to take a deep shot. So I'll take Javonte Williams under his rushing, and I will take Courtland Sutton over his longest reception. I'm really surprised that it's only 20.5. I figured they would bump this thing up to at least 23.5, maybe 24.5. But we'll take advantage of that low line.
I like that one quite a bit, Andy.
Oh, thanks.
I like that one as well.
Yeah.
Talked about that one on Monday.
Someone pointed that out like a few weeks ago, and it's like, oh, yeah, you're right. He has been hitting it. It just like keeps hitting over and over and over again. So, all right, we're going to move to the Monday games, the Christmas games. And Andrew, you and I were laughing like I'm in a fantasy championship. My opponent has Lamar Jackson. I have Christian McCaffrey. And it's like the night game on Christmas when everyone's going to be like probably doing family stuff. And I wonder how many arguments are going to be as to what's on the TV and like, why are you watching the TV and not spending time with family? And it's like, well, it's because it's the most important time of year. No, not the holidays. It's fantasy football playoffs and championships. So let's talk Raiders and the Chiefs. I guess we don't really know what's going to happen with Josh Jacobs. So what did you find out when you looked up this game?
So I want to just read off some of these numbers for Hunter Renfrow. And I know that might kind of throw some people off that's how I'm starting this year. But looking at targets for him in general, 2, 5, 4, 5, 1, 3, 4, 3. Okay. Kind of respectable, right? Listen to the receiving. 0, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 2, and 2. This is insane. Like, there's a reason why I started with the targets first. Sometimes I like hype up a guy for how much he's getting the attention, and oh yeah, they're really looking towards his direction. You know, the plays are going to come. The plays aren't coming for Hunter Renfrow. And the funny thing is, if you go on different websites, the headlines are hilarious. Like Hunter Renfrow fails to bring in 3 of 4 catches or 3 of 4 targets, 4 or 5. Like if I would have showed you those target numbers, Andy, before the show, you probably wouldn't have told me his average receiving yards was 3 yards over, per game over the last 5, right? So I'm looking towards the under for him. Aiden O'Connell, look, this pass defense in general for the Raiders, and something Teddy said a couple days ago, actually, I really agree with. He said he doesn't really, I think it was him. He said he doesn't really take into account blowouts when it comes to like statistical like gains or positive or negative. And, when they beat down the Chargers, everyone looked good that game, right? But you don't really care about that game because, I can't really use that as part of my handicap for looking at certain guys, just because it was such an onslaught that it's not really worth my time. But under for him. How about Patrick Mahomes to throw an interception, man? 7 of his last 10 games, he's thrown one. And I'll tell you, for some quarterbacks that have pretty much thrown one this consistently, you're not getting like a plus price. This is even money at some books for him to throw a pick. And, whether or not he's blaming Kadarius Toney or other receivers every single time it happens, I think a lot of the interceptions he throws, honestly, go off like fingertips for receivers, which makes it that much better. It's never actually a clean INT. And, one thing as a handicapper that I've struggled with, and I've told you about this as well on the hockey show, is that when a guy loses a bet for me, or so when I lose a bet, betting on a player to the over, I stay away from them for a few weeks. All right. And I went against my own rule last week, which is that Bill Belichick does a great job against number one guys. And that guy was Travis Kelce. Rashee Rice has a big game. Pretty much everybody else besides Travis Kelce had a good game last week. I'm not going to look towards yards. I'm going to just look towards receptions for Kelce. You can get 4.5 at a pretty good number. I think that's the way you want to play Kelce this week. He's just not getting targeted deep lately. He's kind of just been that bailout for Mahomes if he needs them. He's not really been the guy to make a big play for him. So receptions, not yards for me there. But how about that Renfrow one, Andy? When I found that, I was kind of laughing.
Love it. Love it. We got 2 games to break down, and then we're going to be out of here, running out of time. So I'm going to jump right into Giants and Eagles. But remind everybody, use the promo code BIRTHDAY30. Get you $30 off a 7-day pass at checkout. Instant discount from $99 down to $69. All plays, all percentages. We're on a 12-0 all sports run, 31-10 in NFL, 13-4 in college football. Great time to lock these in to enjoy some holiday profits. Giants at Eagles. Producer Dan said you want to take Darren Waller because the Eagles cannot stop tight ends, and he is so right about this team. Listen, every week, Producer Dan cashes on his Eagles. He knows them really good. I'm going to look at Saquon Barkley under 55.5 rushing. 9 rushes for 14 yards against the Saints last week. I think this is a Philly kind of ass whooping. What a great game for them to get back on track. So I think the game script's going to be away from them. And if the game script's going to be away from the Giants, I like DeAndre Swift over 65.5 rushing, 18 carries for 74 last week. Now, he went under against Dallas and San Francisco. Those were lopsided losses, but he had 80 yards and 76 yards against Buffalo and Kansas City. Close games, both wins. The Giants are giving up 119 yards rushing per game the last 3. I don't see the motivation. I think Tommy DeVito has turned into a pumpkin or a manicotti or whatever they're called, whatever Tommy DeVito turns into. I just don't think he's there this week. So that's Giants at Eagles. Andrew, you got the big one, the Ravens and the 49ers. Tell everyone what you have up, where we can find you at. What do you like in the Ravens and the 49ers?
Andy, 2 4% plays for me this week in the NFL. One is a side play, one is a total play, and then we'll have a ton of 1% prop plays going. There's a lot of volume, a lot of games I like, so all prop plays will be 1%, but don't miss it. 4% total, 4% side play. Looking forward to a really great week, and I like the way you said that. Holiday profits, let's do it. I want to wish you a happy birthday as well, Andy, and a Merry Christmas to you and yours. One play for me. I know it's a big one, but guys, can't give it all my client plays. I'm going to go with the over in receiving yards for Christian McCaffrey, over 32.5 receiving. Running backs have been going over. Mixon, Warren, Spears, Gibbs. And now you have McCaffrey. I think he's a little bit better than those guys, okay? And they're going to shut down the run game as much as they possibly can. And a lot of games that McCaffrey's involved in where he plays against teams that are good against the run, he simply tells teams, I don't care. You can shut me down on the run. I can just catch the ball and use my legs that way. So whether or not he's running the ball or not, he's going to catch these dump off 5, 6, 7 yard passes and turn it into something. When you're seeing a number here of 32.5, I think he flies over this number, Andy. I think that they don't need to go to the run to be successful. And it goes back to what I always say about Brock Purdy. Everyone calls him a game manager. He goes under his completions. Does he make that many plays? he makes the right play. And great coaching staff over there in San Fran. I like his over for receiving yards here for Christian McCaffrey. So I hate to disappoint. If there's anything you like here, Andy, I got a ton of client plays in this one. So that's one I'm giving out, over 32.5 for McCaffrey.
No, I have plays in other games as well. Sometimes these big marquee games aren't the best ways to fire away. And I mean, when we say high volume, I mean I've been high volume the last few weeks as well. But if you have a good read on one game, by all means, fire away on it. But if it's not Ravens at 49ers, remember, you don't have to bet on it just because it's the marquee game or just because it's the last game of the week or just because we all had too much eggnog. Uh, and we're like, oh, no, let's play some props on the Ravens and 49ers. So remember to practice bankroll management, guys. But absolutely go get Andrew's plays over at WagerTalk.com. All my plays can be found at WagerTalk.com. Have a great holiday weekend, everyone. We are going to be off on Monday due to the Christmas holiday, obviously. But hit the like button, leave us a comment. Have a great and safe holiday, and we will see everyone next week.